So I want to say good evening to everyone, and certainly thank you all for joining us today. I always like to start our meeting off with a prayer and the pledge. So we'll have a prayer by Reverend Isaac Moore.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Just wave your hand in the air.
Oh.
All right, I got you. All right, let's go to God in prayer. Eternal and wise God, we thank you for this meeting. We thank you for technology, for us being able to go with the knowledge you've given us to do things like this. We ask you to God to bless us, to bless Councilwoman Johnson, to bless all that works on her team, to give us strength to do your work, even in a time like this. We ask you, God, to continually further us your knowledge and your blessing, and have this meeting be prosperous in your name. In Christ's sake, we say, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. So I always like to do the pledge, y'all. And this is a time I think that we really need to have it in our country. So I'll start off. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you very much. I didn't see our flag today, Miss Hess.
It's right here.
Okay. All right. I'm Anna Johnson, County Council member for District number 8, and that encompasses all of the Sea Islands. However, as a council representative, I invite everyone from wherever they are to come in and join with us. Before we get into our topic, Ms. Hess, would you like to share any housekeeping information?
Sure. If everybody could just mute your phones when you're not speaking, and then you can also use the chat feature at the bottom if you click chat, and you can speak with us, or if you have a question, let us know that you need a question, or just wave your hand in the air and we'll see you and call on you so that we can keep some order. And I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And need to put my phone on mute, of course. Usually, well, for the last 10 years, I have been having these roundtable discussions to bring information to our community, let people know what the county is doing, and also for our citizens to be able to ask questions and learn more about what the county is doing. And today we're going to talk about preservation, somewhat historical preservation, and the civil rights movement, a little bit about that. But give you a little background. About 4 years ago, a group of us that are former graduates of W. Gresham Machen High learned about the school, which is the only African-American high school on James Island that was going to be abandoned. The September Clark Academy had been in the school for many years, and they had decided to relocate the school. And so when we saw that the school was going to be left vacant, very concerned about what was going to happen to the school. We didn't want to see it become an eyesore in the community or just abandoned. And of course, in the African-American community, we have experienced that oftentimes when these schools close, they don't usually reopen. And so because of that concern, the group decided to find a way how to preserve the Gresham Machen High School building. And this school meant a lot to the members of James Island because it was an opportunity to prepare yourself for better jobs, give you hope for the future. Something other than just preparing yourself to go and work on the farm. So with this opportunity, we hated to see a building that provided opportunities like that for us to be destroyed. And leading from that, we were able to work with Charleston County to get a grant to help preserve the school. So it also gave us an opportunity to learn more about why we had the school in the first place and how much it meant in the role of civil rights. So that's just a little tidbit of what is to come. And I want to introduce the man that's going to help you get all of this newly learned information, Mr. Joel Evans, who is the director of our planning department. And he is going to introduce you to the leaders that are going to share the Gresham-Megid project. So at this time, Mr. Evans, you're on.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Thank everyone for coming on this Zoom call. We, of course, wanted originally to do this in person, but the circumstances around the world have really not allowed us to do that. So this is the second best thing we can do, and I think it'll be successful. To piggyback on what Councilmember Johnson said, we did start this a couple years ago, actually, and I want to introduce the staff here that has helped a lot. Andrea Petrus is with me. She's the deputy director. Andrea Melisick, excuse me, the deputy director. Nikki Grimble is with Kristen Hess. She played a big role on this. Cassie Klein in my office, who's not here, she actually helped a lot, especially at the beginning of this. And also, I do want to mention Andrea Harris Long. She's no longer with the county, but I think especially Councilmember Johnson knows her well. She started off with this grant and helping us write it and actually get it. But she left and went to another position. That's how long we've been working on this. So I want to recognize the staff, but I think that it's been a real eye opener and a real education for all of us to see how much effort was put into the consultants' work in this, and I just wanted to thank everyone. So now I think I'll hand it over to the consultant, Mary Beth Reeves, with what's the name?
Oh, New South
New
Associates.
South Associates, sorry, I forgot the name. With New South Associates. So if Mary Beth wants to take it now, be good.
All right. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm very honored to be here today to talk to all of you, and it's nice to see some familiar faces. Mr. Roper, Ms. Dunn, and others are on that we were lucky enough to meet through this project. We learned so much about James Island's history, about African-American history, and about American history through this project. And I want to say at the outset that the oral history interviews that we collected, each and every one of them tells an incredible story about a journey toward equal education and belongs quite rightly with the National Park Service and open for research so people can learn about this important time and important place that was little studied prior to this. So we want to thank you on New South's behalf for being lucky enough to get this project, let me put it that way. I'm ready to start talking about. I'm going to share screens with you. All right. The idea today is to give you some sense of our findings, to introduce you to some of the interviewees, not all because there's 21. But we want to set the stage for what I consider one of the most important things that this project will bring about, which is a website where you all can go on. Those of you who shared your histories with us, those of you who have kids who like to learn about those histories. Reverend Moore is another one I saw in here too. So there's lots to do, and I'd like to get started. I'm going to share screens. So Charleston County, bear with me as I get my bearings. As you guys know, I'm not the best Zoomer, and there are a lot of people on this call, so bear with me. Ready? There we go. Are we good?
No,
Oh,
not yet.
not yet.
There you go.
There we go.
Got it? All right, let's get going. So stories from a historic African-American communities, a journey toward equal education is the formal name of this project. And as you just heard shortly, Charleston County was awarded a grant to conduct this oral history project in 2018. It is funded by the U.S. Department of Interior and the National Park Service. And the project is really structured through one research framework, because it's just not about African-American civil rights. It is about gay rights. It's about women's rights. It's about immigration, immigrants and their rights. People who are understudied or underrepresented in the United States, to learn about their histories and to learn about their communities and the places within them that were shaped by those communities. So we better understand our resources and better understand these very important histories. The project objectives were to provide insight into the lives of African-American students during segregation by focusing on narratives collected from the people who knew it best, from the alumni and the faculty members from W. Gresham Meggitt Elementary and High School. We were also asked to conduct research on the civil rights movement by really placing Meggitt in its context, in the larger context of the civil rights movement, the Low Country, and that area. And we're really lucky. There are tremendous resources, scholarship that has been done. R. Scott's The Paradoxes of Desegregation is a critical book in the understanding of this time period, published by the University of South Carolina. I suggest anyone read it, but what made this even more important, it gave us the larger context of civil rights in the Low Country with that focus on Charleston, but there were a couple chapters on James Island, okay, which was really a boon to us as researchers in understanding it. And it led us to Mamie Garvin Field's, I think it's Lemongrass Swamp, which is a memoir. This is a teacher who came on James Island early in the 20th century, and she captured her first years as a teacher at Society Corner, which is pretty, to find those kind of memoirs and to kind of get into her head as a young teacher and what she was seeing at this time period was terribly important for us to understand. The third thing was the history of equalization schools. Rebecca DeBrosco, I think at the SHPO, at State Historic Preservation Office at that time, had done a context study, which looked at what equalization meant and what those schools were all about. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because W. Gresham Meggitt was one of them. And finally, the final objective is to provide that oral history findings to the community. And I'm going to introduce you to the website that has those oral histories on it at the end of my presentation. Why W. Gresham Meggitt? Why did this school merit that grant? And there's such good reason for this. It provided education for James Island's African-American children from 1953 to 1969. You can see on the marker, the text, you know, it was a joint elementary and high school from 53 to 63. And just a high school until 1969. I should have said just a high school. It was the high school. And after that point, students integrated with James Island High School. We noted earlier that became a vocational school. And in 1994, it was called the Septima P. Clark Corporate Academy. And W. Gresham Meggitt, I want to make sure we say that, was a chairman of the James Island School Board, and it was named on his behalf. He's a much beloved school board member. The beauty, and I think one of the things that really led to the choice of this grant to Charleston County is that we had alumni and students that were available to talk to it. You know, so many times oral history, we wait too long. And this time, I don't think that happened. We didn't get to any principles of Megan, I'm sorry to say, but we talked to a wide cross-section of people that were associated with it, either as educators, as students,
No.
in some cases,
Okay.
even a sibling who just wanted to go to mega school, who thought about, I heard all her brothers and sisters talk about a great experience it was. The other great thing about Mega in terms of a grant prospect was its presence of active stakeholders, such as the Heritage Community Development Corporation. You heard Ms. Johnson talk about the preservation of the building. This is an active initiative moving forward. In another whole different sense, it was important as a school because it was designed by local architect Augustus E. Constantine. Constantine was the son of a Greek immigrant, and he was a Georgia Tech modernist. We don't know a lot about that time period. A lot of Atlantans right now are looking real hard to understand Constantine and where he fits in terms of that 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. A lot of schools were built by him, designed by him. I also want to throw in that the was actually constructed by an African-American firm, the Acosta firm, which was a local African-American firm, well-known, well-respected, and had ties to really master craftsmen in Charleston. And finally, it was considered a historically significant example of an equalization school. And that, when I say that, that is on its National Register of Historic Places listing. The school building itself was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2018. And according to the Deputy SHPO at the review board meeting, it was one of the most successful ones ever. So many people came up to join in the review presentation that they had to go out and get more seats. It's probably one of the best ones they've ever had. I really noted that, and you guys really need a lot of credit for showing up and letting them know how important the school was. It made a big difference in something that usually is pretty not very exciting. You made the day exciting for the state historic preservation offices. So I mentioned the equalization program, and there's lots written on it, but I just want to make sure everyone understands what we're talking about here. In South Carolina, it was enacted in 1951. Such programs were prevalent throughout the South. Public funds were to be used to build and renovate African schools, African-American schools, to show they were equal to white schools. I think there are 40-some schools affected in South Carolina. 20-some African-American schools and 20 white schools. The whole idea behind it was really to forestall the coming federal mandate to desegregate schools in 1954. Now, with that ahead of us, well, let me go back. I want to say one thing, that all these forces, we talked a lot about why Mega was picked as a grant topic. And I hope I've demonstrated how important it was historically to South Carolina and beyond for us to understand this very important time period. The project team was a very, very good one. And I hope you think that at the close of my presentation. You've just met the Charleston County folks, and they were really supportive as we move through. That's Joel, Andrea, Nikki, and Emily. For New South, it was myself as project manager, and Jenna Tran, David Richardson, and Velma Fan. We all interviewed you folks. So everyone had different interviews. So I just want to introduce the crowd. We all received certificates of completion for oral history, and since have done advanced, and you see the certificate for Jenna on the right, and that includes Mr. Richardson. We were very lucky at the very beginning of the project that Ms. Johnson brought up, wouldn't it be great if a member of the community was part of our team? And she recommended a few names, and David Richardson was the person that seemed to suit us best. He was a graduate of Megget, went on and did so many things in his lifetime, let alone shrimp boat captain, let alone all of you who knew him. He was a very important person. I mean, yeah, to the project and us getting it done. And we were very saddened to hear that he passed away this year. He was an ardent supporter of Megget and all things Megget, let me put it that way. And he's very much missed. We devised a work plan out of the box because we were working with the National Park Service, and Nikki Grimble kept us going to make sure we did everything in terms of what the contract asked us to do. So the idea would be a public meeting to get things going at the very beginning, archival research, development of a research design that would have to be submitted to the Park Service, conducting interviews, transcribing and processing interviews, preparing a report, and a final public meeting. And as Joel said, this is really our final public meeting. Again, not the perfect way.
Hey, Darwin, I just asked, Deborah just said, you hadn't been here yet. Yeah, I'm just here right now.
Somebody needs to mute their phone.
Yeah, because she said Dolores asked. No, she hasn't been here yet. No.
All right.
Huh?
I'm not sure what the protocol is here. Should I keep going?
Right, yeah.
Ms. Hess, are you able to mute everybody?
Right. No, people got bags. Well, there's lots of bags back there.
All right.
Oh,
you just keep
girl,
going.
child, they got
Keep
lots
going.
of bags.
All right. The first public meeting occurred in November after
All right, take care.
a very, very earnest try. We tried to get, if you remember 2 years ago, the fall, there were so many hurricanes that we could never get this thing going. So it took us through November to have that first public meeting. And as you can see, we had it at Megget, we're in the cafeteria. The planning folks did a super job putting placards out so people could sit in their classes, let's put it that way, to say hello and talk with friends and acquaintances. You see Miss Johnson on the right giving us a welcome. And also, probably the most amazing things to us as researchers are these beautiful 24 by 36 original posters with a picture of each graduate for each graduating year, along with the principal and typically a teacher, I think, that mattered. These are incredible pieces of credible documents that talk and show the pride of the school in their graduates. And I'm very pleased that we're able to get and scan most of these. We're going to see them a little bit later. So the first public meeting was a go. It was fairly well attended. We went through the objectives. We talked to the folks that were there. You know, how are we going to identify the interviews? Well, they were going to help us. How are we going to, we want to share historic photographs and slides and films. Annuals became incredibly important for scanning so we understand who's who and when. We wanted to identify artifacts associated with the school and the desegregation era that need to be preserved. And finally, we wanted input on how we as a team can best communicate with our study group. I got to be honest, we thought it would be a Facebook. We were playing with all sorts of things, but we heard resoundingly, we want a community event. And there it is. We have one in February 2019. I hope some of you were there. It was a great day. It was 12 to 3. There was food. There was music. We had speakers. Dr. Millicent Brown was asked to give a talk, and she did. She is one of Charleston's first children. That's how she self-identifies, as being within the first group to desegregate the Charleston public school system as a sophomore at Rivers High School. She did a great job talking. Dr. Candace Cunningham from the University of South Carolina gave us an update on her civil rights study in the Low Country. Now, while the talks were going on, we had members of the New South staff scanning historic photos and annuals, and that went very successfully. It was a great turnout. This is just a quick photograph of some one view, but you can see we did pretty well. Again, we're at Megget. Memorabilia was shared, and this is just to give you some indication of what was there. You see Mr. Prelo's class ring up at the top there. And we had from Clarabelle Gordine Arthur some tremendous memorabilia shared. What you're seeing on the left, the illustration, the rocket to the moon, is from her annual, I believe. And it really shows the thought of a young Black woman, thinking, what am I going to be? How am I, what does the future have in store for me? Striving for a better tomorrow. You can see in that beautiful arch up to the moon kind of thing, which is just beautifully said. To the right, you see the new periscope. And we were able to get several editions of the school newspaper, which was chock full of information about awards. You can see honors in 3 different science fairs up there. And some people that are actually listening might be on there. So and that's always a fun part of it. So memorabilia shared, very much so. Posters and map presentations. You see Thomas Prelo, David Richardson, and Ned Roper looking at a map that we wanted people to write on. We really wanted to get the where the schools were, just not Megget, but the feeder schools. Where were all the elementary schools? How did this all work? Get some sense of James Island's overall sort of what I call the educational map. And they did a great job in giving us that information. While they were out in the hall, I and David Richardson were actually doing one-on-one interviews, and they were conducted in separate classrooms. Each interviewer had a set of questions that were developed for the project. And when I say that, if anyone's done oral history, you have to go with the flow. So you have your questions and you're ready to go, but you never know where that oral history is going to take you. So you have to be nimble and ready to go. Each of the Megget graduates or teachers were filmed and audio taped, and we have permission or release forms that allow the county to put these, to use these for research purposes, to get them out there. So we were very pleased with what happened. I'm going to go through some of the topics because what we did is we had a group of topics that we always went back to, okay? And the first thing with each interview was, tell me about you. Give me your biography. Who are your parents? Did they go to school? Who were your siblings? Kind of getting that big picture. And then how were you associated with Megget? Student, teacher, principal. We went on to talk about the experience, the teaching staff, the programs, the culture, language. Talk about all those things. Tell me about them. And different people respond to different things. When you start exploring these oral histories, you will see that for some people, like Mr. Wilder's interview, the football team is a big part of his memory and remembrances. So everyone had a different take on things. We asked for a description of the impact on a modern school building for Black education on James Island. I mean, it's clear from the historic photographs that most of the elementary schools up until this point were anything but modern. And a lot of that is documented in the oral histories. We wanted them to talk about the onset of the civil rights movement. Did they get guidance on what was going to happen, what was ahead? For those who experienced integration, what was that like? What was the impact? Was there tension between kids who went to the equalization schools such as Megget and those that attended integrated schools? How did education change after desegregation for African-American students? And what was it like teaching in integrated schools? Were their jobs lost? What happened, as a teaching professional? We wanted, so this is a wide-ranging group of topics that were meant to handle the different people that we were interviewing. The first interviewees that day, I just have a few people thrown up here. If you're not here, you're definitely on the website, so please don't take umbrage. But all the graduates came to talk. They didn't come to sit. Mr. Prelo was not there. I mean, he enjoyed the music, he enjoyed the food, but he came to talk. And he's there on the left with his hand on a tree that he helped plant as part of one of the first graduate classes. They had an agriculture class and they planted those live oaks in front of the school. Ned Roper's in the center, looking pretty chipper. We had a great interview with him, and Emma Richardson is on the right. We went back in March, and that's when we did quite a few interviews. And these were, we were very lucky and very honored to have St. James Presbyterian Church on Secessionville Road. They offered us 2 classrooms to work, and they were just an incredible host. They big smiles every morning coming in, big smiles going out. They were just couldn't be any kinder. If an interviewee didn't show up, they went and called one for us. That's how good they were. And we were just shocked and just awed by, you know, this is a church that has such deep roots in the history of James Island, you know, and they understood us doing history and appreciated it. So it really was something else. They did a great job. Just going through, that's Nathaniel Backman up on the left. Miss Dunn, there we go, and Terry Fox. Miss Dunn, I want to bring to, now, well, let me introduce a few. Nathaniel Backman has a very strong history with St. James, and he talks a little bit about that in his interview. Ms. Dunn talked about her family, which is, again, deep roots on the island, and the midwives in the family. We learn a lot about, as she learned or tried to be or wanted to be a medical professional growing up, and her interview is very good. And one of my favorite things is she would punctuate her interview with saying, "This is a glasses moment," meaning this is when I had great insight and I made a change based on it. It's just, you know, a knowledge, and it was a very neat way of putting it. I enjoyed that. Edward Green is not shown, but Terry Fox, the gentleman with the suit jacket on, he is a North Carolinian who came to Megget, didn't quite know what he wanted to be, but he was assigned as a student teacher, and he went on to Megget. And when he heard about the project, I think through the newspaper or some of the media blasts that we did early on, he called Charleston County, they got in touch with us, and he came on over because he wanted to participate, because he knew he was part of something really tremendous at that point in time. And his insights, while they are peripheral, they're also, you see sort of the outsider inside, looking at the school and how it functions. So he has a lot to offer and lots of information. Teacher Diana Hamilton's on the right in the red. She is an educational juggernaut. I just, anybody who had Miss Hamilton or has talked with her knows this is a true consummate professional teacher. I wish my kids would have had her. Let me put it that way. Down on the left, on the bottom, Miss Johnson, everyone knows her. And she also did a good job. And she did a beautiful job talking about Miss James, I think, talking about, you know, women, professional women, especially at the school. That I think you'll enjoy. Mr. Middleton talked about his experiences at the school and as being a vet. Cassandra Roper is the next one over. She and Mr. Wilder also, again, that tangent I talked about with oral history, you can never know where it's going to go. These are two people that actually grew up for a great portion or a portion of their childhood in New York City, and then they came back to the segregated South. So what they talk about, again, is something I hadn't really considered or thought about beforehand. We learned a great deal from him, from both of them. Mr. Wilder, you see, came dressed for his interview. He was ready to go. In September, we finished up doing, we got an interview with Miss Willie James, who was a teacher, really an iconic teacher. When I talked to all of you, and when we talked to most of them, she was head of the English department. She was, as I said, Mr. Fox was her student teacher, and we're very lucky. Her husband had passed away. We waited until we were able to speak with her, and we certainly understand why the respect and love that her students had after speaking with her. She was inspirational. That is a picture of Terry Washington. Now, Terry brings a whole different perspective, and we're going to meet her a little bit later when we do excerpts. Not shown are Vivian Ingram, Deborah Barrett, and Josiah Cromwell. What we learned. Okay, so we did 21 interviews. So 3 teachers, including 2 that were assigned to Fort Johnson after integration, were interviewed. We're very lucky to get those perspectives. We think we did a good job. We got students from the early to the later years of Megget. One interviewee that went to Megget, then transferred to James Island High School, you're going to hear from. And we did comparative interviews with individuals that attended Burke High School in Charleston. So we think we had a wide range. You always wish you could do 50, but 20, these are 21 good interviews, as I said, that really contribute to our knowledge of education on James Island. Now, each interview, while is full of rich detail, just chock full of rich detail on James Island's African-American life and culture. So we may have been asking about Megget, but we learned about truck farming. We learned about shrimping. From Mr. Green, I believe, we learned about learning golf at McLeod Plantation by pulling up the boundary stakes and using that as a golf club until you become a caddy. And then, you know, you ultimately get your own set of clubs. And for him, he went on and got a golf scholarship to college. What a story. What a story. So they're not just about education. There's so much more. Our biggest takeaway is there was no one journey. Everybody told us a story that had common threads, but the details were so different and idiosyncratic. And I think that's one thing I really want as you explore the oral histories, read through them and enjoy them, understand the sense of how different everybody's lives were. You come together and come apart. So not one journey. Everything on everybody on James Island is related. That's one thing we learned just going to lunch with David Richardson. Whatever restaurant we went to, wherever we went, there was my cousin, there were all sorts of relationships. And it was a tight-knit, kinship-related community. It came across loud and clear in the interviews. And as I said, even just walking around with Mr. Richardson. It may have been an equalization school, but the community there created a place of educational excellence. And you cannot, one of the things that we were warned at the very beginning is making a school, you know, an equalization school seemed too perfect, you know, because it was under segregation. But this community did something that was incredible. You know, when we started putting our facts together and we started thinking about it, you know, here you have a school that was designed by a first generation American immigrant. You have a school constructed by an African American firm, funded by a segregation government. But that's not what really, to my mind, makes Megget historically significant. It was the community that embraced it, and made it into something. They had their children at that front door waiting to learn. And then you had an extremely professional Black educational force ready to take them inside. One of our goals was to look at when you say the journey, I'm going to use that loosely, where were the schools? And we started building maps. Where were Three Trees? I don't still have a handle on where Cherubin Lodge School was. That has been pronounced, the poor transcriptionists have us saying Cherry Beam, but Mr. Prelo spelt it for me, and I'm not quite sure of its location, but I think we have most of the schools here. We also had, Mr. Prelo was very good. He identified the Society Corner Annex building, which Mamie Garvin Fields talks about in her early, in her memoirs, which was kind of cool. So having a map, knowing where these places, because remember the idea behind these studies is to find the places that talk to this history, that enable us to interpret the history, that we can take tangible remains of this time. Individual storylines, Megget was a nurturing educational environment. This comes across again and again and again in these interviews. In so many ways, in so very many ways. The teachers came to teach. They were ready to teach. They knew what the challenges were facing the children. They had sort of beat the odds themselves and gotten to where they were, and they were ready to pass on the baton. It was a typical rural high school in many ways. Probably one of the things that I have to admit, if it seemed like at least 2 or 3 of the people we interviewed were bus drivers. Once they got their driver's license, the school tapped them to actually take on that responsibility, which would be unheard of today, right? It also prepared many to look beyond farming for their livelihoods. You are going to hear fairly shortly in these excerpts that farming is hard work. And when Mr. Prelo says that, you really hear it. So again, and that's pretty much a theme throughout this. The teachers were African-American professionals, and that meant a lot. You really heard that again. Female African-American professionals too. This came across. I call this next thing the backflow from the Great Migration. But James Island and New York City, wow. If you look at or you read Miss Field's memoir from the 20s or 30s, she talks about people taking the ship from Charleston up to New York, that there was a packet that went basically. So there are people coming to and fro. Later on, the automobile and the train help out. But you really have quite a few of the interviewees having a New York City connection, either as young people being taken up there, or some people migrating to live some of their professional lives, but then coming home to James Island. How strong parent involvement and family reinforcement that education was important. We asked each person, was education valued in your family? And you will hear this time and again, yes, and why. Finally, individuals make a difference and made a difference in many students' lives, what I call the helping hand. And you, in this case, I'm going to go back to Mr. Prelo and use him as an example. He went to college 1 year after he graduated because the family funds weren't there. And through the social network, I think a member of his family, I think it was his mother, got through to a college and where he went and ended up graduating. And he got a job. He got a job there, bussing tables, doing dishes, that sort of thing. And that enabled him to get room and board, allowing that to happen. So helping hands, social networks, people helping one another as they moved ahead. Now I'm going to introduce you, and these are, to my mind, kind of teasers. I want you to introduce you to some of the people who really made, and it's sort of a storyline. Ms. Johnson pointed out to me, I did a little preview for her the other day, and she goes, no, I like what you did before, do a kind of show people who these folks are. So Thomas Prelo, he came up for that, our big celebration day, up from Brunswick, Georgia. Now, Mr. Prelo is James Island native. He grew up in the vicinity of James Prelo Road, Folly Road. His family owned a farm and a store. He attended Society Corner Elementary School, then Cherubin Lodge Hall for 6th grade, and then went on to W. Gresham Meggitt, from which he would graduate. And he eventually came through, graduated from South Carolina State College. Mr. Prelo is multi-talented. He's a poet, singer, he was in a group when he was a young person. But he really gives you a sense of that early time period. And I'm going to play an excerpt from his interview. And he is a low talker, so people lean in if you can.
So we entered the school, brand new school, brand new desk and all that stuff, new lighting, It was a treat. We were the big dogs, okay? Second in line because, as I said, the 8th graders were first. I think we switched only a couple of classes in the 7th grade. And we did the same in the 8th grade, And it was a treat because we were like older relatives who went to bird school. They were switching classes. So, wow, different teacher. But we were always positive. We wanted to succeed. We did not want to remain on that farm all the days of our life because we saw what our parents went through and other family members. And we are sick and tired of having to work so hard. We have to work the fields. We have to help harvest the vegetable, carry it. Oh gosh, hard work. And then you have to wash the vegetable and so that it could be presentable to take to the market. It was hard work, cold weather, hot weather. We had very little time to spare to play, unlike some kids. Some children were more blessed than we were. Their parents worked other jobs. you know, locally, laborers to task, other jobs away from home, you know.
Well, when you came here, was it harder scholastically? I mean, what were the teachers like? Were they, did they challenge you or to grow? And like, what value system did they work with?
Yes, they very inspirational. See, most of them. We only had a few teachers who were from the island, either this island or John's Island. The others were from Charleston, the city. And elementary school, when we first started, we had Mrs. Chisholm, which was from a local family here. And we had Mrs. Bluntwell, she was from the city. And she had Mrs. Bryan, she was from the city. But they were positive and strict teachers, very influential. They make you learn. If you didn't learn, then they'll take whatever action necessary to help you to learn. Say, but we had the drive and the eagerness to want to learn, want to succeed. And our parents were behind it. Key factor, parent, parental concern, interest, influence. Okay.
Okay. Well, let me go back.
May I make a comment here?
Okay.
Ms. Reed, I want to say that Mr. Prelo did a really good job on talking about the condition being in a new school and how grateful he was, because that was one of the fights that the African-American schools had, was to fight the deplorable conditions that the previous schools were in. So that's why, you know, one of the reasons why people wanted to have an integrated school, so they could have the same kind of school conditions that the white kids had. But just wanted to make that one observation about him.
No, he did a great job. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We're going to listen to another quote from his interview.
We didn't focus upon things of that nature. Well, because we were separated. And our concern was to excel. Okay? We didn't think about the fact that we were going to one day possibly come together. You know, we wanted to excel. Okay? And move on. We were given the whole textbook. Some of the textbook are torn, ragged, pages missing, dirty. But we were given the leftovers. There were times when we didn't have the appropriate writing materials. Okay, the chalk and the chalkboard was old and dilapidated, whereby it would screech as the teachers write on the board. Okay, we were considered as second class in that we didn't need. The only time that we got new books was when the old books were sort of dilapidated and thrown away. For example, Winky's, the book Winky, the first reader in primer, those books were basically new. Jack and Jill, and those books are soft cover. You know, we get them, like I say, basically new. Now, when we got to the first reader, second reader, those were the hard covers. And then those books were the ones that we would be getting as used books because of the fact that the new ones went to one school. Okay. Even at that, we had to preserve it. We had to cover them either with brown papers, newspaper, whatever.
You covered your book.
Cover the book, preserve it. See, but we were taught very interesting and very important stuff, preservation. It's just like the clothing that we wear. We could not wear, coming from home, our school clothes are plain. You cannot wear your church clothes to go to school. They only have few pieces, one pair of shoes, you know, and then later on, you got two pairs, you got a church shoe and you got a school shoe. And then we got whatever we could find or hand me down to put on our feet to work in the fields. But we observed and didn't pay that much attention to it because of the structure of the homeland, the domestic structure. You know, we were guided that in order for you to succeed, you must go to school and learn. That was support. If you got a whipping in school or you were detained in school because someone in the class misbehaved, once in a while we got out of line, but not often because of the fact that you didn't want to be whipped twice. So, and we were just determined. Those folks, as you say, and the African proverb that I never heard about until I was about in my 40s. Takes a whole village to raise a child. We experienced that continuously through life. If you did not say good morning, good evening to Cousin Josephine on the corner, or Miss Mary down the road, they would speak to you. What's the matter? Did you sleep with me last night? Or even the uncle next door. Did you sleep with me last night? I said, no, sir. Well, you must have. You didn't tell me good morning or good evening. Oh, I'm sorry. See, we were disciplined. Disciplining was an issue of importance. And to keep us out of getting into trouble, whether it involved you or not, my mother used to say to all of her children, boys, and sisters elsewhere, son, when or if the fight breaks out, you run or you leave. And that kept us out of trouble. Yes.
That's great. And as I said, Mr. Pillar really sets up that early time period. As Ms. Johnson said, the books that the kids got, but then the spirit of the family and how that worked. Let me introduce you to our next person. That's Cassandra Roper. She was a native of Saul Legree community, initially reared by her grandparents. Her mother worked in a cigar factory in Charleston. She started school in Saul Legree, but her aunt, her great aunt, left, assumed responsibility for her, and they eventually moved to New York City, where she attended public school. Later, the family returned to Saul Legree, and she attended W. Gresham Meggitt. And she's going to talk about the first days when she came back and about that, because I think she has some really great insights. And I got to tell you, she actually came to talk to us about St. James Presbyterian, the history. And halfway through, we found out that she had graduated from Meggitt. So we grabbed her right away, too. So that's kind of the way it works with oral historians. But let's hear her, what she has to say.
When I came back, it was 7th or 8th grade. And I went to W. Gresham Meggitt. When I went to W. Gresham Meggitt, it was kind of strange. I didn't suspect anything, you know. After the day of classes, I kept looking around and I saw no faces other than colored faces. So that evening, Mr. Mack, who was my teacher, he said, Cassandra, he said, well, how was your first day? What was your experience? And I said, well, I don't see any white children. He said, and when I said that, all the class just burst out. Oh, everybody started laughing. They started laughing. Oh, white children. Who's she asking about white children? And I couldn't understand. I said, well, what did I say wrong? So he pulled me aside and he said, well, the white children go to a different school than the black children. I said, well, how do you mean a different school? I said, well, in New York City, we all went to the same school. He said, well, that's not the way it is down here. They have their own school that they go to, and we have our own school that we go to. You know, the school for blacks and the school for whites. And I tell you, it took me a while to be able to absorb that, that there was a difference, you know, that there was a difference between black and white, and you don't go to the same school. But eventually, you know, and I stayed at Gresham Megan until the 12th grade and graduated from there in May 1963.
Again, an unexpected story, but said so beautifully by Miss Roper. The next one up is Mr. Wilder. Those of you who were in school with him probably call him Cubby. He was a native of James Island. As I said, he came dressed for his interview with the right paraphernalia. He was born in the Sellers Creek community, but raised in Harlem by an aunt. So there's echoes of what you hear with Ms. Roper. He attended public school 68 in New York. He started 7th grade at W. Gresham. He would attend Voorhees later on. He became an Air Force vet and got his degree in special ed from Southern Illinois University. It's clear from his interview that Mr. Wilder was a man about town within the school. He loved the football. You learn about the coaches, you learn about all that kind of stuff. He was like a big man on campus, probably what I would have said when I was a kid. He told us David Richardson was the guy with a car. You always know, if everyone who went to school in the United States, there was always one kid who had a car, and you all tried to get in it really badly. He was a wealth of information in like a popular culture sense, very much so. His interview is punctuated with nicknames for the teachers as well. So the principal, I think it's Leroy Johnson, was Lash LaRue because he had a whip, which he would crack in the hallway to make sure people got to their classes on time. And there were many other references. So he's a fount of information from that point of view. And I think he is one of our bus drivers. I'm not quite sure, but I think he is. I'm going to, in addition to that, because while he is a very lighthearted person and that comes across, he also talked very powerfully about the school and what it meant to him. Here is his excerpt.
So the uniqueness about Gresham Megan is that we were a family. And the parents, the teachers, treat like you were one of theirs. Like you were one of their children. And the other uniqueness about Gresham Megan is that the parents stood by the teachers 100%. You can act up in school and think you're gonna get away with if you act in school. And at the time, the teacher was allowed to carry this little switch. You got to hold your hand up and you get your little whooping or your little chopping, or if Mr. Anderson catch you in the hallway, because you ain't no business in the hallway, or ain't no business cutting class. So the uniqueness about Gresham Megan is, at the time the school was so brand new, there's no trees or nothing like that. So you can go with the class and go hide somewhere or cut class because everybody's looking for you. So that's the uniqueness with the togetherness. Everybody was one, and everybody looking to see if you get away with something, and you weren't gonna get away with nothing because the teacher looking, the kids looking, the student looking, and so and the teachers had patience, and they always tell you that you are somebody. You are somebody, and that uniqueness with the teachers and the parents and the discipline, it led to a learning atmosphere. I wouldn't say that the students there, but I see that most all the kids that mostly graduated from Gresham Megan done good. They've done really good in their journey. And not that maybe had the best of education, but they learned value. And they learned to respect the elderly. But to me today, young people don't respect the elderly too well. That's how we acted. So that's one of the things. And we were not taught to be prejudiced. We hear the older people talk about stay in your lane. And that means don't get out your lane. Stay in your lane. Because I didn't share this with you, but when we would go to King Street on Saturday, my dad used to tell me, son, Do not look a white lady in her eyes. When you see a white lady coming towards you, throw your head down. And maybe you might have to step off the sidewalk. You didn't tell that to the man, now he's the white lady. And I didn't understand. And then when I told him what Elmer tell him how he went down to Mississippi, and he got out of the lane. They killed him. You know? And I don't know how many of that my parents experienced, because they had a tree down called the hangman tree, or Redwood Avenue of the hangman tree. There's a lot of black cut hanging on that tree. So every day they were telling you something about stay in your lane, is don't get out of your lane. Or like when I go on King Street, you see a lot of older blacks, and they will look at you, they can't look at you, they throw their head down, because they were taught that. And I used to wonder why certain things was happening, but they never taught us to hate. They hate the white person. We were taught to love. You know, love your brother, love your sister. And they always say, you know, if you get your cut, you know what they say, if you get cut and they get cut, you got the same red blood. So I think that a lot of the black folks that graduated from double graduation make it in the unique of the school, well, we were not taught to hate. Get your education. You don't have to stay in this environment or this situation you're in. Move above it. Get your education, and then you will see that y'all can come together and be the same. You know, education is the key, and that's what we were taught.
There we go. It's very beautifully said. Ms. Johnson, do we have a time limit?
Well, we do. We usually do this for an hour, and sometimes we go over just a little bit. Can you show us a little bit about Ms. James, and then we could probably wrap it up, see what kind of questions?
Yep, I think so. We talked to Ms. Hamilton. I wasn't going to tell you a little bit about her, but I'll tell you they're a great interview. Terry Washington, I talked to you about. She had 12 siblings who attended W. Gresham Magnet, and I think she had a great interview. Are you familiar with Megan? Emma Richardson and Miss James. We're very lucky to get Miss James, get that interview in, as I said before. Her mother's a teacher, and almost all of her siblings were teachers, graduated from South Carolina State, taught first at Alston High School, and then in Somerville, then Meggett. She had her MA. She was chairman of her department, and she was one of the 3 teachers selected to go to Fort Johnson at the onset of integration. So here's her clip.
So the transition for your students, did you see any difference when they got to Fort Johnson? Were they still blooming? Were they still raising their hands to answer questions? How was that transition for them?
We had to, I did, well, yeah, all 3 of us, because we would sometimes get together and talk about the students and what they were doing and so forth. We did not have the opportunity to encourage them and let them see that you have knowledge of certain things and you must use that regardless to where you go, you know? And so my students that I had, I encouraged them to do that, and they did it because they knew that I was always serious about education. And I would always tell them, this is what you have to do, this is what you should not do, and that kind of thing. And of course, they knew that when they came to me, this is what they had to do. And I told them so, not only with me, but with other teachers as well. And what happened is we would tell them, don't feel neglected if you hold your hand up and you are not called on. Don't feel neglected. You know, if you had your hand up, you must know the answer. You know, a lot of kids, oh, I had my hand up and she didn't call on me. Well, see, what I did to my students, I told them, if you knew the answer and you had your hand up and you were not called on, that's all right. Because you might not have been able to show that in that class, but later in life, you'll be able to show it. So that's what, that's how I handled that. Yeah. And I guess I'll say Mr. McCray and Ms. Hamilton did the same thing.
Miss Willie James, as I told you, Miss Johnson at the beginning, I talked about Miss Johnson's interview, but Miss James was really an iconic teacher at the school, and it came across Mr. Fox's interviews. First of all, she was always beautifully outfitted, as you can see from her picture when she was a teacher, pearls, jewelry, pumps, the whole 9 yards, because everyone came dressed to go to school. In fact, I just need to leave you with this. Miss Hamilton mentioned when she went over to Fort Johnson, they were so happy that the art teacher wore pants one day. It was definitely against all the rules, but after that, that opened up the door for pantsuits and they never went back. They were very happy. So that it's just a little tidbit about education, actually the last part of the 20th century. Looking ahead, because I'm going to summarize and go to the website, or at least to the link so you can do that. Each interview, as you can see, rich in detail, filled with historical accounts that touch on all aspects of Black history in South Carolina, and also American history. Okay, it's American history, and it's something that needs to be further explored, to look at the nurturing environment at schools like W. Gresham Meggitt and those high educational standards that you heard these folks talk about. You know, what do they have to tell us about education in the 21st century? What can they tell us? Small class size, devoted teachers, kids ready to go to work, parents backing up the teachers. So there's a lot of lessons learned here. Looking ahead, we need to understand the geography of James Island, how it impacted African-American education, for better or for worse, and seeing where the places were. We have charted some of those place names, but a cultural map of places that matter is needed, and we need to keep building that. One of the things we see at the end of this is a preservation initiative, maybe making a heritage trail on African-American education with interpretive signage developed in partnership with local college preservation programs like the College of Charleston. There are sites and buildings still associated with education in the 20th century during this time period. And it'd be terrific for people to understand that today. Meggitt closing, I'm going to read this last thing and then go to the website because I think it says a lot. Mr. Backman, Nathaniel Backman, talked about Meggitt closing, that they didn't really get notice. And in his words, and some of us were, well, we were heartbroken. It was devastating because the school was such an integral part of the community. To Ms. James, I was very upset myself. I'm sure other teachers were as well, because the relationship that we have with our students, certainly if we knew they were going to go to another school, we would have gotten them together. We'd have tried to encourage them to do the best that you can do in that new setting. You know that you can do it, and we would have encouraged them to no end to continue what they were doing, to do even better. But you know what? They really had enough of that within them. I guess we had already helped them along with their parents, so didn't have to worry about that. And that's a beautiful testament from a teacher from that time period of what went on at Meggitt. And I want to leave that in your minds as you go through that. They already had enough of that in them. That's really saying something. I've talked about the website all along because it's really where you're going to find all of these things and more. The website, there is your link. I hope sometime over the holidays, everyone goes to it, gives it a whirl. I'm sure, let us know what we did right and wrong. It's something where our company is committed to fixing if we can, if you let us know. But there's a home page, right? And there's a beautiful picture from a Newsweek magazine photograph of students going into Meggitt in the banner. I think you'll enjoy seeing it. We're very lucky to find that. But the homepage talks about the project. It shows some pictures of our graduates, both then and now. Our stories is a page in which each of the interviews are laid out, okay, with photographs. Again, sort of not to be, older, younger, excerpts. Some people like to enjoy more and less. So there's excerpts from interviews, but there's also the full interviews and the transcriptions below that for people who want to dive deep. History, this is what we gleaned from our research there, just to put out a basic history of Meggitt and its importance. The memorabilia is probably my favorite page because all of those incredible graduation pictures are on there. Okay, all the annuals that we're able to put our hands on, they're on there. We have historic photographs of some of the early school. Anything that we could scan, we have in the memorabilia, and we hope we can add to that in the future with your help. Okay, we do have something on your photos. So if you went to a prom, if you're standing out front this time period, we'd love to see that and add to this body of knowledge. The next one is learn more. And that's, you want to learn more, you want to do a little bit more research. There's websites, there's online sources, there's published resources all out there. And then we have a contact page. And for the near future, it's the Charleston County. Nikki Grimble is probably going to be the person that's going to take that, and she'll be the gatekeeper getting that to us. And since I did this, put my PowerPoint together, we do have an events page that's on there now so that we can publish events for you if something's going on at the school or something people need to know about. So I need to close here. I know we're over time. I've really enjoyed talking with you today. This is a terrific project. All of you share in it. I love the website because the whole focus are your words, your voices. Okay, that's what needed to be there, and that's what people are going to learn from. So thank you for listening to me today, and I will stop talking.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Reed. This has been certainly a most enjoyable moment listening and learning all about the information that you shared with us. This was a great project.
Yeah.
I know we had to work through it, but we got through it and look at it now. So Miss Barrett, if she's on with the HCDC, I think she wanted to make a comment. Ms. Barrett?
Hi, I'm Deborah Davis Barrett, President of Heritage Community Development Corporation of South Carolina, known as HCDC. And we are truly proud of the accomplishment of this oral history project. It was 2 years in the making, and it is a result of the partnership with our great Councilwoman Anna B. Johnson and the Charleston County Council. And through them, we were able to get the $50,000 grant to actually make this project a reality. It allowed for the students that walked the halls of W. Gresham Meggitt, studied under some terrific and professional teachers and caring teachers, and to share their struggles, experience, and accomplishments, despite the unequalizational practices that were in the 50s and 60s. So I'd like to just thank all the alumni, the teachers, the community for their participation and support. When this, at the beginning, our humble beginnings, we had a group of concerned folks that started out with this organization: Cheryl Cromwell, Charmaine Walker, George Dawson, Isaiah Latson joined, Sharice Sanders Prelo, as well as Gloria Wright, and beloved David Richardson, who shared a great deal of knowledge and information with us. He's no longer with us, but we appreciate all that he contributed. And to our current members of HCDC, Wilburn Gilliard, Ned Roper, Catherine Pemberton, and Arthur McFarlane. I want to just thank them for their continuous and great work. To Mary Beth Reed and New South team, her New South team, Joel Evans and the Charleston County team. Thank you for an awesome, awesome job. Last but not least, I'd like to say thank you to a true visionary, a soldier for the people at large. A huge, huge thank you to Councilwoman Anna Johnson for all the great work that she does. So to everyone today, thank you for joining in with us and for making this oral history project a reality. We do look forward in 2021 to the display of W. Gresham Magan Historic Landmark. You will be notified when that event takes place. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for all that you're doing to help us and making all these projects come to fruition. Okay. So before I give it Mr. Evans back on here, I want to acknowledge I saw that Miss Rebecca Nebraska, she was making comments, she's watching us, and she is someone that I certainly want to thank tremendously also for her work in the paper that she put together for the Equalization Program.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she started all of this from what I can see here with the talking about the Equalization Program and even identifying some of the schools that were eligible for recognition. So I certainly wanted to acknowledge her in all of this. So Mr. And Ms. Hamilton, thank you for being a part of this. I see that you're on one of our former teachers and Miss Manigault, Gwendolyn Manigault. I don't know if Miss James made it on, but I did see some of those
I think
others. Oh, she's on as well. And so, you know, maybe we could open it up for a few minutes if someone just want to take a minute, make a comment before we go back to our staff. Anybody, teachers, alumni, new friends, come on, somebody.
Yeah, this is Ned Roper. By all means, this effort has touched my heart as it did early on, and I just pray that those who are on the call continue to again chime in and support the school as we move forward. And again, thanks to the folks who put this on. This is outstanding. Great job. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, welcome. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Anna was one of my good students.
Love you, love you.
It is Willie S. James, Willie S. James, but
yes.
the nickname is Billy, and that's what you saw on here today. So Billy.
Outstanding.
That doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me because when I hear somebody say Billy, then I said to myself, "Oh wow, that's somebody who knows me," and that's what I said. Billy, that's somebody who really knows me. But when I hear Willie S. James, I said, "Oh yeah, okay, that's somebody who knows me, but not as well as they are calling me Billy." Thank you so much for all of the invitation that you gave us today. Really, really appreciate it. I'm very, very glad that Anna invited me today to come. I really appreciate it. And I've got a lot of information that I can share with her and pictures and so forth. And I was sitting up here saying, as soon as you get up here, you go on and start looking for all of those beautiful pictures, all the letters that have been sent. And so I'm just happy, and thank you so much for asking me to come today. And don't forget me and others, okay?
We love you.
Hey,
I'm glad that you came on. Thank you.
This is Diane Hamilton. I just want to thank you for including me in this magnificent project. It's a tremendous piece of history that you've put together and will serve as a great foundation for the future, linking them to the past. I thank you all for the comments that I was able to read in the box, and for the team that did all of the work. I can't name each and every one of you, but for whatever part you played in this project, it is definitely something to be proud of and should be passed on to the future generations. Thank you for including me in this historic event.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Ms. Johnson, how you doing?
Okay, all right. It sounds like Reverend Isaac.
Yes, it is. If we can get a flyer to the churches to let them know about this program, let them know about the South Carolina Equalization School program, if we can do that and just send something to them, I think we can get the information out to many more people.
Thank you for reminding me about that, because we recorded this session so that it will be available for people to look at. The library is going to have a copy, and I think it's going to be also on the Charleston County website. Our staff could tune in on that a little bit later on. So yes, we don't want to just keep it all to ourselves. This is something to share with the world. It really was a great project, a lot of information, and it's the beginning of what you're going to be seeing more about history and the African American community in Charleston County. So just keep your eyes and ears open. Okay. Did we get everybody?
No, I want to say something.
Oh, okay.
This is Mary Alice Moore. First, Miss James, I always thought I was your best student. I guess we're all a little jealous because we just thought Miss James was the best teacher at Megan. First, I want to say this is just so heartwarming and so touching. I'm sitting here and my eyes are just full with tears just watching this, you know, to know that we were a part of Megan and that we're all connected in some way is so rewarding. Whenever I'm in Columbus, Ohio now, and I don't ever want to go visit any place but James Island. My grandkids said, "Grandma, don't you want to go someplace else?" I said, "No, I just want to go home." It's just something about that upbringing that we had on James Island that would always keep us connected, whether we're family now or whatever, we're connected. We're always a family, no matter what. And thanks to everyone and to the committee, a fantastic job. Fantastic.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay. Anybody else?
Miss Anna, can I say something?
Oh, okay. All right. Miss Susan?
Yes. I just want to say this was such a beautiful, touching, and emotional project, and it was very well presented as well. And I just want to say, just like Mr. Prelo, you know, I've never seen such a display of pleasingness in him leaning on that tree. This is what I planned. You know, and everybody's connected, just like that tree he planted. And just hearing the history from each person, and as this presenter said, there's a connection with everyone, and the stories may differ in certain areas, but it all connects. There's a basic connection there. And I went to Megan as a vocational school, but those teachers and students must have left something in the hallway, because when we came to this vocational school, it was like the pridefulness, you know, not in a bad way, but a good way, spiritually a good way, just rise up into you, because you felt like you were at home even then. So I thank you all for the residual spirit that y'all left in the place. Okay. And it was really good, this presentation. I hope that our younger people would really look at it and see it for its full value, and to have teachers that would encourage you the way that you all have been encouraged to know and to love them yet today. So I thank you, Ms. Johnson, and the team that put this together, and to use as a teaching tool.
One more thing. Thank you so much, Anna. You are doing an excellent job. Wherever you are doing it is fantastic.
Here, here.
Working for us. Keep working. Keep working.
Well, I want our story to be told, y'all. I want us to tell the story.
Keep working.
Is that a little bit of Barnhill coming out of you?
Yes. Yes. Okay, Gerdine. Yes. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Okay.
I didn't catch the whole interview, but you know, anything that has to do with James Island, and my sentiments are the same, like Mrs. Jake just said a few minutes ago. When I get home to Charleston, I don't want to leave the island. Yes. I want to savor the moment the whole time I'm there, visiting family and friends and old historical sites. But this is really, my heart is filled as well. So this is really interesting. And I didn't catch the whole thing, like I said, but I'll go back to the website and get caught up on everything. But I appreciate the sharing of this information. It was just awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think he's in DC. We had Mary Alice from Ohio. And anyone else was from far away was on?
Miss
Deborah?
Johnson.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Vicki Roberts in Ratliff, and I'm calling in from Atlanta, but I am from Mississippi. And for some reason, I saw your flyer, Miss Johnson, last night on the internet. I'm like, and I am so into history and telling these stories. I'm like, I have got to get on this call, but
okay, thank you.
I'm just a little bit late. And I have thoroughly enjoyed it. One of my best friends was from Hilton Head, so I know a lot of the backstories of what goes on in Carolina. And I am happy that I got a chance to listen to part of it. I'm looking forward to looking at the website. And my thing is, I would like to know from the group, the New South Associates, are you guys doing this other places throughout the southeast part of the United States? Because there is so much history with the integration of schools that if we don't capture these stories right now, because I'm listening to your story, my family was from a community called Spring Hill out in Montgomery County, and it was owned by nothing but African-American landowners. And they had their own schools, the grits mills and all of that. But how much we've lost with those people, but we have it written down. But I too would like to be able to capture some of these stories before it's too late. And that was my question with New South. Are you guys open to maybe coming to Mississippi where Miss Fannie Lou Hamer was beaten, and there's a lot of stories there that needs to be told? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Miss Mary Beth, did you want to? Well, I certainly want to thank the young lady from Atlanta or Georgia, wherever she is there, because this story is just not a James Island, Charleston, South Carolina story. It's what has happened to all of us. We all grew up in communities, settlements just like this, but our stories was just not out there. So I just wanted to make sure it's coming slowly, but it's coming now. And we have to really push ourselves to try to preserve wherever we can. I know a lot of times I talk to people in my community about don't sell the property. If you do, try to sell it to somebody in the family. That community is something you will never be able to recapture again. You just won't be able to do that. But you could always go back home and pick up just like you never left if you continue to preserve your settlement communities. All right, Ms. Reed.
I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
Vicki, we're located in the Stone Mountain area. If you'd like to talk, I'd be happy you're in Atlanta. But yes, no, I think there's gonna be a wellspring of studies by African-American historians over the next 5 years. There are companies like ours that are doing oral histories. We were asked by Redstone Arsenal, I think last year, to look at like 10 counties in Alabama, Northern Alabama, and look at farming families and that sort of, but just African-American, stick on it, stick on that storyline. I think more and more, I think with the Black Lives Matter movement, our firm is now working hard to work with Spelman. We're working with historically Black colleges here to offer internships. I will be honest with you, we don't get a lot of archaeologists and historian resumes. We think we don't make enough money. I think that's the problem because yeah, a lot of people going for engineering or things of that nature, but we would like to get more young people involved in these kind of studies because, and I also think, you know, it's the work of African-American scholars to bring this forward. I think the insight, the perspective, the thought. I work with Velma Fan, who was one of the interviewers, and she comes out of things she thinks about things differently sometimes. And it's good to have that perspective and knowledge. So So I see that very much so. And you have other professionals. I see Catherine Pemberton's on here. She's done a lot of work.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, and Rebecca DeBrasco. So there are people doing this, and we'd be happy to give you some guidelines if you want to start doing some oral history, how to make that work. Okay.
Thanks.
Just call me. Thank you.
Okay. I did hear the mention of Catherine Pemberton, and I wanted to recognize her as our first contact as far as putting W. Gresham Maggott on the National Historic Registry. So we love her for that work that she did there also. And we just want to share it so that other African-American communities will see the glory in what you have there, and make it prideful. We're not ashamed of our communities. We love those communities. We just need to find a way how to improve it and make it better, and give us some of the monies that we did not get that we should have gotten in some of these communities to make them better. Anyway, Mr. Evans, Joel, I know we can go on and on here, but we do have to end this. So, Mr. Evans, you have some final comments?
Just real briefly, just so everyone knows, this is the second project that we worked with New South Partners on. They also did our historic preservation study, which I encourage people to, that's available on our website. This project and that one, you know, the consultant really showed Charleston County really what's important. You'll see in the study that they did on the first project, Mary Beth came to us about 3/4 of the way through and said, Joel, I think we're going to really have something here. She recognized all the settlement communities, all the African-American settlement communities as part of that study. So we got a good consultant. They did a great job. Again, I want to thank my staff. They did an excellent job. Nikki Grimble, Andrew Milicic, and also, of course, Ms. Johnson. This wouldn't have happened without you.
Well, thank you. And we couldn't do it without you saying yes, finally. So our next meeting for the roundtable will be to discuss preservation in these settlement areas. So I thought that'd be a nice spin-off, and we'll have our staff to continue with that. Until then, we look forward to seeing you the 4th Wednesday, same time, same place. Y'all have a good evening and a safe weekend.
Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Here.
Very good, Ms. Johnson.